Rocker Jazz.
Thanks so much for taking the time. I mean, I've been listening to your music for ever since this one actually came out.
Oh yeah, right. That's early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was a huge Ralph Towner fan, and you know, I still am. And then I bought this one. And I was like, oh. Then I started checking out, you know, like how it goes. Came to your records, and you know, you start exploring.
Okay.
But I first wanted to ask you, like, about In-House Science, your last trio album. I played actually in the same villa where you recorded. I saw you recorded that in Villa Rothstein. We played there with Michel Godard, the tuba player.
Okay, well, yeah.
And it's an incredible place. And I wanted to ask you, how was it to play actually in that place for you? Because it's such an amazing scientific atmosphere going there.
Yeah, I remember the gig. It's very good. It was very nice. It's a small room.
Yeah.
But the radio recorded it, and I think we had a good evening. You know, it was nice to play there, and well received. I mean, for everything, you know, they were taking care of us, and the audience was great. So when I heard a record, or the recording, when I heard a recording, I thought, wow, maybe this could be released, you know, and I sent it to Mumford Happen, and he said, let's release it. Right away. We don't need to mix it. And I said, well, yeah. Just wait a second. I think we need to mix a few things, you know, because there was some feedback at certain points, you know, which I wanted to take away. So we mixed it a little bit, you know, and more or less just cleaned up the sound a little bit, you know. So I was very happy, you know, to have a live album is always something I like to do, you know. There's such a difference to hear the band, what it sounds on the club on a Friday, than to hear it in the studio, you know, which it's always a different way of secure the music when you're in the studio.
Yeah, funny, right?
Even though I try to be just like it would be live, you know, but I know there is some kind of a little you're a little tensed, you know, in the studio.
Yes, someone is sitting there, like telling you, no.
So it's always nice to have a good live recording. I like that.
Yeah, it's like, because it's, you know, you did live at Belleville, which is like,
yeah, that was also live, yeah,
like
and
a burning one also.
Yeah, and also the one called Celebration with Tommy's big band.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Live recording. So actually, the only studio recording I did was
Mira,
recently is Mira from 2012. And on purpose, I wanted to do some kind of a slow type of music down. And I already said when that was released, I said, this is music for Sunday morning. And then In-House Science is music for Friday night.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different way, the way you listen to music. You know, when you come home and you put on a record on a Sunday morning, you know, you don't need that kind of burning stuff, you know. So it was somehow I calculated that with that Mira recording to be sort of controlled, and the energy coming from other places than just burning.
Yeah. No, but you seem to have this, like, you know, after listening to your music for such a long time, I think you always have this really nice balance between, you know, like this really crazy improv stuff. I mean, like really fast swinging also, but then you have this ballads.
Yeah.
And also on live concerts, I think you have these moments. Do you consciously decide that also when you write music, that, okay, how to balance all this, because it's such a nice balance?
Well, when I write, I just write whatever comes to my head, you know, so, but when I put the program together for a concert, I'm very aware of the energy flow, how the music can develop, you know, and it's that balance between that high energy and that more floating, spaced out. It's kind of important. Also, when I'm in the audience listening to other concerts, I think that's very important how they put the set together. So even though each song, when I put the set together, could be, they could go anyway. They could actually, any slow kind of song could go into some free playing. I don't stop it, you know. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I leave it to the moment with the musicians, but it tends to be like the slow songs. They keep that sort of space, and the energy songs they build themselves in a way.
Yeah, but do you like when you guys, you know, when I listen to especially the Live at Belleville, I think it's even more that because you have those long tunes. Like, how did you like envision that concept of composition? Because you know, when I listen to it as a musician, I hear you know, you go to some composition, compose stuff, then you go into some open playing, and then you again go into.
Yeah, well, that's part of how I like to make music, you know. And the Live at Belleville was mainly based on commission work called Independency.
Yeah.
The 4 first songs, they were commissioned to me as a duo setting with Tommy Smith.
As a duo? I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
So we did that music, and when I wrote it, I thought it would last 20 minutes. I was asked to do 20 minutes, but when we played it, it was 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we went on tour in England, Tommy and I, and did that music quite a bit. And some months later, I had a concert coming up outside Oslo, and I asked Paolo Vinaccia to join us. And actually, Paolo and Tommy met for the first time in the afternoon for the sound check. And I had played with Paolo Vinaccia so much I knew where he could go, you know. So. So we had a sound check out in Drammen Theater, and a lot of that on that record is actually from that very first concert. I don't remember what, because the club Belleville we played a few days later, which was also recorded. So I took the best from those 2 shows and made that record. Yeah. So some of the things on that record is actually from the very first time we played together as a trio.
Wow.
It's recorded by our sound engineer, Asle Karstad, and the other ones was recorded by Jan Erik Kongshaug at the Belleville Club in Oslo. So I could go back and find out which one is from where, but I don't think it's. Yeah. So that was like written out like almost 40 minutes with opening space for improvisation and free playing, and the other songs was from the repertoire as a trio.
Yeah. Since you're speaking about composition, I wanted to ask you, like, as a composer, how do you get ideas? Like, you know, sometimes you know, sometimes you walk on the street actually or do something and you get like this, I have to write this down or sing it. Like, do you have this daily compositional routine, or do you sit down and write music then, especially for? Most of the music I've written has been from, not most, but a lot has been from commission works, from different concerts I was asked to do. Okay. And then in the old days, I just wrote songs for the quartet. In the 70s, I just tried to build a repertoire for my quartet, and in the 80s for the band, my quintet Mascalero, and I write music for that. And in the 90s, I had some commission work which came out with some music. And actually, since Mira, I don't think I wrote any more music since 2012. Yeah. Last 8 years. Wow.
I did write a few things actually, but not much. But I have so many things laying around that I'm picking music from different eras nowadays when I put together a new concert, because I have so much music which I also wrote for theater and film that I never worked out with a band and played it live, you know. So like yesterday, I was supposed to do this sort of a jubilee concert. I turned 75 this fall, and they wanted to make a sort of jubilee concert for me at Kongsberg yesterday. So I put together a complete new band for that concert was supposed to be, and picked out music which I hadn't played live with any band.
Oh, wow.
And most of it, you know, I picked out music, and I asked 2 guitar players, drums and bass and saxophone, to do that concert, which never happened, and hopefully it can happen in the winter.
It will.
We'll see, you know. But writing music is when I get commission works, or when I did get that, I'm not asked that much more. But I tried to write one song every day, one idea every day, and the next morning I would start on a new idea, and then after like 5-6 days I go back to the first day what I wrote down there, and I see then there's some connection with what I wrote on the first day and the third day.
Yeah.
So, and I always since the 80s I was writing with computers. So
really? Oh wow.
Yeah. So I could put the ideas together and see if they could match each other, and then I continued to do like 16 basic kind of ideas in the computer. Some of them came out pretty much as a song, more or less in that one day. Some idea, about it. And I would think, that today I'll write something slow in 3/4. So I just start with a melody, and just sit by my old DX7 keyboard and play some kind of a melody. And then I play another melody, and I just somehow comes through my mind, and then I try to add some bass notes.
Okay.
And work it out from there. And I always had this idea from always loving Ornette Coleman's music and Charlie Hayden's sort of that thing between the melody and the bass. And I always thought that if the melody and the bass is enough to play the song, that you can sort of hear the chords.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't need to add the chords, but sometimes it's nice to add the chords. But I think then the chords is like salt and pepper on the food, it just make some colors. But for me, the basic thing has to be the bass notes and the melody. And sometimes I hear piano players, they like to write music with a pedal note in the bass and a lot of chords, which for me then, if you play that pedal note and the melody, it doesn't tell you which chords is missing, So it's a different way from being a bass player, I think. And I understand piano player, and some great music has been written. I mean, Naima is a thing like that, which is fantastic. So it's not that either one is better than the other, but this is my way.
Yeah, no, definitely. But you write on piano, right?
Yeah, on a keyboard.
Keyboard.
I'm not good enough on piano to sit down and play my ideas and write it down by hand.
Yeah.
I never had piano lessons, and I really regret I didn't learn piano when I was like 6, 7, like a lot of people do, but we didn't have a piano at home, and I never had that possibility to. I tried some years back to pick up some piano playing possibility, but no. When I could from the 80s on, I could use the old Atari system.
Yeah, exactly.
And put down sequencers and put down melodies and add the bass notes, and also could do different tempos. See if some melodies get very corny if you play them too fast.
Yeah.
Then you could try, with a slow or a faster, and so on. So that's the way I've been working with composing.
But with you, it's basically, I mean, in my mind, like the entire 3 days now, I've been singing that one. You know that Backe from this one?
Backe. Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
I wrote that like, for my son.
Oh really? Oh wow. Yeah. But it's all about the melody for you in a sense, right? When you write the heads, it's like I think all of your songs are so melodic, even if it's something, and it's so lyrical. That Bygone, that ballad you guys play, like it's such a lyrical one. Like, yeah, it's all about the melody in a sense, right?
Yeah, it's about them. It's once again, it's about the melody and the
bass. Bass,
how the bass can fill out, so you understand the song.
Yeah. But speaking of this trio, like when did you meet Tommy Smith? Like
that was back in actually 1985 or 6.
Wow. Already.
We met on the ship SS Norway. They had jazz cruises.
Really?
Yeah, for years. The old ship by a Norwegian company called Kloster. They were doing cruises in the Caribbean.
Oh,
and they had 14 days jazz festival, you know, with all kind of American musicians. And as a Norwegian, I was invited by the Norwegian company that owned the ship to join there. And then Tommy was there because he was in the Berkeley school band of Gary Burton. So Gary Burton was there, and he had some young students with him. Makoto Sona and Tommy Smith was among them. And I didn't remember that we met, but Tommy reminded me, and he sent me some photos years after, you know, because so in 1989 was the first time we sort of hook up. Tommy asked me to come to Scotland to do a television show with his music, and 1990 I had the possibility to do some festivals here, so I invited him to come over here. And then we played a few concerts, and then it was sort of just knowing of each other for years. And then in 2005, I was asked to do this commission work, and we picked up again, and been, you know, 15 years now. We've been like on the track, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because you know, like through you, I got to know many players, like, you know, Tommy, and then I checked out his discography, and it's amazing what he did, right?
He's fantastic.
He's such a composer, also an incredible one, and
definitely, yeah.
But also like this other trio, like Vassilis, Tsabropoulos.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
How did you meet him for the triangle in Archirana? He's such an amazing player. I mean,
yeah, that was I was going to Greece pretty often in the 90s to meet this composer Vangelis Katsoulis.
Oh, okay.
And he invited me to do several records with him, and on one of the records, Vassilis Tsabropoulos.
Oh, okay.
Piano, and we did a concert at the Megaron concert hall in Athens, and I met Vassilis. This was like last half of the 90s, and I immediately heard his, you know, fantastic piano player. He's a classical piano player, and his touch on the piano was like, it's like very, very special. And also his way of improvising and everything. So I thought I should try to make a record, you know, with him. So I asked Manfred if we could make a trio record with Vassilis, and then I wanted to do it with John Marshall, because we also met over the years, and I always loved his cymbal playing, and his.
Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah.
So we just put this trio together and recorded the one called Archirana first, and then we recorded a few years later the one called the Triangle.
Yeah.
So and then we broke up because Vassilis was a little. He wanted to be sort of. I don't know. He wanted to have his name on top of the record. It was my recordings.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it became some kind of a little discussion there. So that trio broke up, and Vassilis apologized a few years later, because it was sad the trio broke up.
Such a nice band.
Yeah, we had a lot of concerts in Italy, and we could have continued, you know, but it got some kind of a personal problem there. I was very sad about that, but it's okay now, you know. But we don't play together. Yeah, I was in Greece maybe 5-6 years ago. Played with Vassilis again, and we had a good talk and all that. So everything is okay. But right those years in early 2000, you know, it didn't work well.
No, sure. But you know, it makes sense, because then you went to this trio with Tommy, and that's also good. So, but like. You're talking about working bands, right? I mean, all these groups you have or had, like, you kept them for some time.
Yeah.
But was this ever like a working band also? Like, did you guys tour? And
no, not really. No, we did before that recording. We did a concert at the Kongsberg Jazz Festival, and I was actually going to do a solo recording that summer, and then. I figured maybe I should do a duo, some tunes, a duo with Nana Vasconcelos.
Did you know him from before, Nana? Or?
Yeah, he was in my group where we played Norwegian folk music from 1990. He came to Oslo for the first time, or at the Voss Jazz Festival. We recorded that one that came out after a while on ECM called Sang.
Oh yeah.
Sang. Nana is on that one, and then he was in my group for about 8 years. That group existed with the Norwegian folk music and the improvised music, but the last few years it was a bit. He was living in New York, and it was a little bit expensive to bring him over. So Paolo Vinaccia sort of played those concerts.
Okay.
But it was many years there where Nana and I was in Brazil several times, and met Nana, and Nana brought that band over to Brazil, and we had a very good collaboration with Nana. And when he died a few years back, you know, he called me just I guess a month before he died, and he said, "Now I'm getting better. We should play again." And we had a plan to do a trio with Bugge Wesseltoft.
Oh, really?
Nana and myself. Yeah, we had a plan to sort of try to get that together that coming summer, and then he passed. You know, so that's another story. Strange.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's such a nice record. Maybe for me because I was still a teenager. You know, when I bought, so you know, the records you listen to as a teenager kind of they stay with you.
They burn harder than the ones you listen to later on. I know.
Yeah, exactly. So this one is just for me, really. I don't know.
Listen when you're 18, 20, 25, it sits on your mind for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but speaking of that, like, what are the records that you listened as a teenager to? I mean, like the jazz stuff. Do you remember the stuff that really blew your mind? I mean, like jazz-wise.
I think 4 and More Miles in Concert still is one of my favorites, really.
Oh,
wow. And also Everybody Digs Bill Evans was the first record I bought with Jones and. Is that Philidor Jones on drums? And then of course when Now We Sing, Now We Sobs came out. With Miroslav, you know, and also his record Infinite Search was amazing, you know, with him playing all this freedom jazz and stuff across the strings. So
that's incredible. Yeah.
It's a hard one to play, you know. So, but also I was actually asked by ECM recently to mention 5 favorite records from the ECM catalog, and I remember first time when I heard Paul Bley, Gary Peacock, and was it Paul Motion?
Oh, yeah.
You know, that very early ECM recording. That was, and Peacock always was the one that really impressed me from the very beginning. Like in 1962, I came across a television show it was shown, I was 17 years old, and it was with Shorty Rogers, and Gary Peacock was on bass in 1962. Wow. And it blew my mind. I was playing guitar at the time.
Oh, really?
Then I heard Peacock on that television thing, and I said, wow, is it possible to play bass like that? First of all, it was so, I could hear every note, which wasn't, you know, on all the recordings you got. I didn't have many records, but mostly the bass player was kind of dull in the background. And I heard Peacock, and his ideas, his way of playing,
incredible,
kind of traditional jazz chords, jazz way, but he was expanding it, you know. So I said, wow, then I should maybe I should play bass. That sounds very
okay.
So it sort of gave me something to think about, and I started to play bass. So that was the early days, with Peacock and Miroslav, and of course always Ron Carter.
Really? Okay, from Miles also, of course, makes sense.
Always with Miles' band, you know.
Yeah.
So as and those records, they always brings good memory to me, and of course, like Facing You with Keith Jarrett.
Oh yeah.
Because I was in the studio when he recorded it.
Really?
Yeah, Facing You and Crystal Silence and Open to Love, Paul Bley. And Chicorea, so Volume 1 and 2 solo.
Yeah.
You know, those recording in the early days at the Bendixen studio here in Oslo, Manfred would invite me to come and listen, you know, just to hang out. And I mean, we were the same age, Keith Jarrett, Manfred Eicher, me, you know, we just, who would know that 50 years later this would be milestones in the jazz history?
Yeah.
Couldn't know at the time. So looking back at it, it's like, well, it sounded good, and then we woke up. so that's of course made a great impact on me, you know,
No,
in those years.
But speaking of milestones, you made like at least a couple of milestones for me as well. Like, I just want to talk about two records that I really love by you that are older, like from 1981, the Mulder concert and Lifelines. I mean, you mentioned Paul Motian, right?
Yeah.
And you know, Paul Motian was for me, or is, I mean, one of the best composers. Okay, he was an amazing drummer, but like composers.
Yeah.
And on that record, you had also one of the best composers for me and players, Kenny Wheeler.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, how did you get that band together? How was that?
I just called Kenny. I had played with Kenny, I think, and I met Paul Motian in New York several times before that. So I had a plan to put a tour together in Norway. And Steve Dobrogos, I was playing with him together with Alex Reel and Radka Tonev at the time.
Okay.
So I just figured out maybe I should just get a new quartet together and see what happens. I called Paul Motian and Kenny Wheeler, and they wanted to come to Norway to do a tour, so we did. Played many concerts around, and then we recorded in the Talent studio at that time, I think.
Yeah.
With Jan. And let me see if Manfred was there at the recording. Sometimes I recorded without
him, yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling that he wasn't there at that time. I can't remember quite. But anyway, he would always, you know, overlook it and come to the mix and stuff, you know. So we recorded that, and I think it was a nice little recording, yeah.
Also, the Steve Dobrogos, for me, he was like, you know, I never heard of him before, and he was really an exploration for me. I was like, who is this guy, you know, on that first tuned camera, and he's like burning it. Like,
he's from North Carolina and been living in Sweden since the late 70s, you know.
Oh.
So he's a fantastic player, and we kept connection for some years. We played some trio stuff with Alex Reel, Danish drummer.
Yeah.
And then it sort of went different ways, you know. So he was still in my mind.
That record, you really nailed it with that lineup, you know, because it's basically just, you know, trumpet and a rhythm section, and I mean not trumpet, it's Kenny, you know. It's like
Kenny, fantastic, yeah. I did quite some playing with Kenny later on, you know, in Denmark with the Danish guitar player Karsten Haumark. So we did quite some playing together over the years.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's.
And with Paul, and I also went with his trio on a summer tour in '79, I think it was, with Charles Brackeen on saxophone. We did an extended tour, you know. So I knew Paul very well, you know. I loved his playing, and but just the first time I played with him, and he hit that A Cillian with one little all these metal things, you know, which is the same symbol he uses with the Bill Evans trio.
Ah, okay.
No, I just hit that, and I said, "Wow, Scott LaFaro, where are you?"
That's so funny. Yeah. That's so funny because, like, you know, I don't know if you know a guitar player from Canada, Gordon Gardina.
Okay.
He did a record with. He was a student of Gary Peacock, and but a guitarist, and he did a record with Paul and Gary, his first, and they had a rehearsal, kind of. I mean, although Paul didn't like it, but like, and to the rehearsal, Paul brought all these cymbals, and he started taking it out, and he was like, "Okay, do you want the Bill Evans sound? Do you want the Keith Jarrett sound?"
Yeah.
And Gordon was just like, you know, this is.
The Cillian is fantastic.
Yeah, but what about this other Mulder concert? I wanted to ask you about, you know, being a guitarist. For me, Bill Frisell he's the king. I don't know, just his approach of egoless playing and all that, and how did you meet Bill? Actually, you did that duo record and the Molde concert. How was your connection there? How did it happen?
Well, I can tell you the story. There was the Molde Festival. They wanted me to put together a band of my favorite musicians. They said, just try to find good musicians. We will pay for it and all that. I had met Alphonse Mousson in New York a few years earlier, and we talked about playing together. So that was some kind of a choice. I called him, and he said he was available. And John Taylor, I had met before, played together, and you know, I knew him. So he said yes. And then I actually I asked Pat Metheny, and he said yes. So he was going to do that concert. Then a little later, he called me. Well, he probably maybe called me or sent me a letter, not even email.
Yeah, right.
His own group had picked up so many concerts that summer that he had to cancel coming to Norway. So then I called Michael Brecker, and he was busy. And then I was wondering. I remember Pat Metheny suggested a guitar player for me. I picked up his record, and very good guitar player, but I didn't connect to him. So I heard like a few seconds of that guitar of Bill Frisell on a record, and I said, "Wow, this is what I want." So I figured out how to get in touch with him, and somehow maybe ECM helped me or whatever. In a way, I managed to call Bill. And he said, sure, he could come. So he came to my house a few days before the concert, and we rehearsed. And he had been living in Belgium for a while, playing some things. And I think he did a few notes on Eberhard Weber's record.
But this is one of his first records, basically, right?
Yeah. So then nobody knew who Bill Frisell was, you know, when he came to Norway. And then we rehearsed in Molde and played that concert, and it was a 2-track recording from the radio Norwegian Broadcasting, and it just everything fell into place, so to say, and it was amazing. I remember the concert very well, and everybody was very. And then Bill got more and more into, he got a lot of, not because of that record, but I think it helped him, at least he understand himself. So I was putting a tour together for Europe, and then Bill couldn't make it, so John Abercrombie came and played.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I have a recording from Norddeutsche Rundfunk from Hamburg with more or less the same songs and Abercrombie on guitar.
Oh, you have to send me this, please. I'll keep it. I'm such a huge Abercrombie.
It's really fantastic. Abercrombie played that very, very well. So we did a few tours around Europe with Abercrombie, and then Alphonse and we continued to work together. I had a Norwegian guitar player, and then it sort of faded out in a way, but. That was that band.
No, but such a nice. I mean, you and Bill, like also on Bill's In Line.
Yeah, then Bill asked me to join him on his first recording for ECM. Yeah. He was supposed to do the solo thing, but it sort of stopped a little bit. So he asked me, because we did a duo tour, also maybe two tours in Norway. We actually did play a lot together.
Wow.
Just bass and guitar, So it was easy for us to do that in-line thing. We just went to the studio, had a small amp. We didn't have headphones, right?
Wow, beautiful.
As far as you and I are apart now, and not from Slovenia, and that's on the screen here. So we did that, and then I've been meeting Bill every now and then. We actually did something in Kongsberg 4 years ago or something with a Norwegian poet called Blackbird Bye Bye, where we play duo, Bill and I, which is a fantastic recording, live recording, and this guy is reading poems, translated some guy called Stevens, American poet.
Oh, Wallace Stevens.
Yeah.
I did my diploma work on him. So.
and he had translated to Norwegian. And Bill played a trio concert earlier that evening, and then we had like half an hour to go through what we were going to play together. So we didn't have time to go through everything. I just said, I'm going to cue you, because I had some plans for which part of the lyric, you know. And then we said, on this one we play Bye Bye Blackbird, on this one we play. So we actually play a couple of standards because we didn't have time to
Wow.
so we just play the concert, and it's out on record, and that's pretty amazing. It's not a well-known record, but it's out on.
I'll have to check it out. Wow.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's I guess you can find it on Amazon. I'll find the cover and send it to you.
Please, yeah, I really love to check it out. You know,
it's not very well known, but it's some very good playing there, and the guy reading, you know, as Bill said, it's like playing with a saxophone player, because he's so sort of. He also did records with Garbarek, this guy. I was on a couple of records with him together with Garbarek early 70s, and then he continued to work with Garbarek through the 70s, and so he's always had jazz music around his poems, whatever it was, you know. So that was also a nice thing to do with Bill. But then I asked him a few times now, but he's so busy now, you know. And he mostly do his own projects, which is. He has so many projects.
I know. But now it's so nice that you guys still kept in touch and did. That's beautiful. But you spoke about 70s now. I want to ask you, because you somehow also, besides having this Scandinavian connection, of course, since you're from Norway, you somehow made a really strong connection with the American music side. And I wanted to ask you, like, about two things. Like, I saw first of all footage with you and Bobo Stenson, Jon Christensen playing with Sonny. I think you're playing Sonny Mumford 2 and In a Sentimental Mood.
Yeah.
And it's burning.
Yeah.
And how did that happen, and how was it to play with Sonny? Like.
Yeah, well, I was also at the Kongsberg Festival. That and Bobo, Jon, and I, we had been out in the spring of 1970. We were in South Africa with Stan Getz, and we played at the Antibes Jean Lepin Festival that summer with Stan Getz and a couple of other gigs. So we met sort of through being the rhythm section for Stan Getz for a while, and then the year after, then we recorded the trio thing for Ecm, and then the year after, it must be, the Kongsberg Festival wanted to have Sonny Rollins, which at that time had been sort of So, but he accepted to come to Kongsberg and play with the Norwegian rhythm section. So that's just what happened, you know, that year that we played with. He was very nice. We were very scared because there was many stories about. But he came into the rehearsal room and said, "You guys can play some calypso." He started right on, you know, and luckily we had heard that before. so it came out pretty nice, and there was a television thing, as you say, Salamon for 2 and Sentimental Mood, I think.
Sentimental Mood. Yeah.
He let us play so long solos. I think I play even 2 full rounds on bass solo on Sentimental Mood.
Sentimental, yeah.
It's far too long, but anyway, he was standing there listening, and he didn't make any sort of move to come in after the first 32 bars, and then played another one, you know. So I was okay, you know. But I mean, it's fantastic to have known these fantastic players, and that's been my school, you know. I never went to regular school, so my school was always to play with good musicians and pick up, especially the focusing and the energy of these masters. How they sort of was really on the case, you know, both Stan Getz and Sonny Rollins and many others that I happened to play with, you know.
I mean, you also I listened yesterday to 2 tunes like Onyx and What Is Topaz that you did on that Sam Rivers record.
Yeah, with Sam, that was.
It's like that Onyx, you know, that up tempo, like really.
I don't remember the names of the songs, but
with Barry Altschul, and it's just like. How was it like to play with Sam? How did you meet Sam Rivers?
That was incredible, and he was also such a nice person, you know, because I came first time to New York, I think it was summer '72, And I was there several times that year and through 73 and till spring 74. In and out 5-6 times. I didn't stay. My longest I stayed was like 3 months. And then Sam asked me to play every Friday and Saturdays at the Rivoli Studios. He would have live concerts, you know. So I played many concerts with Sam and Barry in the studio. And, the summer before we played at the Molde Festival, which was recorded. And so I played with him a lot, and he would come over to where I stayed. I always stayed with Sheila Jordan's apartment when I was. So I'm such a. She turned 92 2 days ago. So Sam would come over to where Sheila lives, and pick me up with the bass and everything. Go over to Bond Street to Rivoli, and Barry was there, and then we go downstairs and play for an hour, just like a set of music. Always free improvised, but most of the time in time. Never really was some kind of a beat to it all the time, you know. But freely, and then when it comes to that thing again with the saxophone and the bass going.
What you said,
you know, it's like moving two voices like that. And he also says. You know, the energy is floating in the band, and whoever has the strongest energy at the moment, he's the band leader.
He pulls it,
So then they could sort of, all of a sudden, they would sort of lay out or just, and I would sort of come out with some walking or something, and then Barry hits it again, and the energy was going, and I've been keeping that sort of thinking into my own groups now. That interplay sort of thing.
You can hear that, with Tommy. And,
the bass and drums is not the rhythm section. We are 4 equal voices when I play in a quartet.
And that interplay, constant.
So that always was my goal for you know, when I have my own band. So of course it's nice to be in the rhythm section for Sonny Rollins or Stan Getz, you know. It's a different way, you know. But with my own bands, I like to have that freedom of. Stop playing, for instance, any time, and it wouldn't be somebody turn around and said, "Is the bass player sick?" So it's just like the music can live well with the saxophone and the drums for a while.
Definitely.
Or everybody is like on that same wavelength, you know. So that's always been very inspiring. And with Sam and Barry, it was very close to that feel.
Amazing. It's such a those two impros are like really the energy is just like you can feel like, you know, like it's bursting.
Isn't that record called "There Is No Energy Crisis"? I think so. Because this was in the 70s when there was an energy crisis. You know, you can drive a car.
No, it's a different one. I think Life at something, but.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to.
I have to check the title, but I listened to it yesterday. I was just like, yeah, man. But speaking of your connection with drums, I just wanted to ask you, how did your connection? I think you and Jon Christensen were probably like one of the best rhythm sections of the 70s, if I speak about jazz, man. Like especially because you know, you listen to you guys and you're just like this. Like even if we're speaking about Garbarek or playing with Sonny or whoever, but how did you and Jon actually meet first? Like when did this connection happen? And
well, it happens when we started to play with Garbarek in that quartet with Terje Rypdal. And we played some trio at some times, and Jon is he was a few years older than me. And had been playing a lot of regular gigs at the Oslo Jazz Festival with Bud Powell and Dexter Gordon and a lot of, you know, that. So he was very experienced. But for him also, when we started with that more open way of playing, we could lose that time thing and just let it rest for a while, and it came more or less like you would go on a wave of movement instead of a time kind of movement. You would have some kind of you would try to make the music move forward, but not as a metronome, but as a sort of a breathing. And then we would hit some kind of a downbeat, or where we could put together and play some time strict again, you know. So this way of moving in what you could call waves, we never spoke about it. It just was like that, you know, that we would let the energy flow like that, and Jan was easily coping with that, and Rypdal, he would fly over whatever mountains there would be to fly over. So it more or less just happened in those years, and Jan kept on doing these things. But then later in the 70s, when Jan played with Keith Jarrett and Jan Poldanos, they played very strict timing, you know, like very down to the downbeats and whatever. And Jan could do that like incredible also. But when we hooked up again, Jan and I, in the 80s for my quintet, Mascalero, then we would go also at points where we would let it flow again, just and then back to strict time, and then
swing,
let it. So in and out of that timing, where the wave was just as important as the precise downbeats. So
makes sense.
I can't explain it much more than that.
No, that makes sense because you know, you always move together. You know, that's I think what you're saying.
Listening, listening and trusting each other.
Yeah, exactly.
That we would just leave it for. Of course, that free way of playing that came from Art Ensemble of Chicago. Some of well, not as much as with Cecil Taylor. That was like. Energy was at a different level, but that free some of Paul Bley's music and something was also in the back of my head, at least, you know, to get out of the strict rhythm section bass player, you know, just to be part of the music.
No, definitely. But can I ask you just this, Arild? We mentioned this quartet with Terje and Garbarek, Jan, like. What was happening in Norway in late 60s that this blooming scene started to happen with so many of you players? Like how did Jan's quartet happen? And I also wanted to ask you this, because we spoke about Mumford all the time now. How did the connection with Mumford happen like then through this?
Yeah, well, musically, to begin with, Jan sort of made a direction of having the music less related to number of bars, certain chords, more inspired by. There was also a movement in America at the time, in Albert Ayler, and Coltrane's last album, just with Rashid Ali. You know, opening that thing, but still. We tried to keep some kind of a form to the music. It wasn't like free jazz. Other places in Europe they did more of that, and then it just happened that, well, we liked that music, and George Russell moved to Oslo at that time, and his idea about the chromatic concept, where you sort of move away from the classical chords, changes to a song and all that, you open up for a wider idea of notes put together, also had a great impact on us. And that was actually what led us to meet Manfred Eicher, because George had a sextet where this quartet was part of the sextet, was two Swedish horn players. And we went down to Bologna in Italy for a festival in 69, must it be, or something. Wow. And then Manfred Eicher was there. He had just started his record company. And he came backstage. I didn't see him, but he came backstage and talked to Jan and said, do you think you would like to for my new record company.
Wow.
And then Jan came to us and said, we got this offer to make a record, you know, and this guy, Mumford Happen, will come to Oslo. So we tried to make a quartet album. Then we had already made one album with George Russell as a producer.
I saw that, yeah.
Esoteric Circle. We made out at the art museum in Oslo. And then when Mumford came to town, we tried to record at the art museum, but the ambience was too much. So we called Jan Kongshaug, Jon Christensen called him, and we got into the Bendixen studio the day after to record. And then that was the first time Jan Kongshaug and Mumford Happen met for that recording.
Wow.
So once again, we didn't know this would be history.
Yeah, you just say then the rest is history.
That's amazing, but that's how it happened. And we recorded in the evening from 7 o'clock, and most of that Afric Pepper second night, just like that. So we couldn't we couldn't know that this would be some kind of a thing to talk about in 2020.
Yeah, incredible. It's like when you said 1969, I realized this is 51 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
But we all have been keep going. Christensen died a few months back, so but some of us are still here.
Yeah, and burning it, I see, and still keeping it up. Arild, can I ask you still like two more things? Like, since you've done so much amazing music, and I really like two records you did. Maybe people don't know them so much, but one is with Tomasz Stanko, the bluish thing, again with Jon.
Yeah.
I love that because it's a trio. Yeah. Trumpet, you know, without a chordal instrument, and like, how did that recording happen? That was in early 90s, I guess. Or?
Yeah, it was early 90s. Yeah, Thomas asked us to come to play some gigs in Poland and also to do a recording. And I don't remember if Sukalski was on some other gigs playing, because we also played some quartet with Sukalski on saxophone. Oh. But anyway, we're going south in Poland to record up in the mountains someplace, and it took so long time to go there. It was like incredible, and we had a sound check in the evening when we got there, and the next morning, Jon and I knew we had to be at the airport around 4 o'clock because we had a concert the day after in Lisbon. And so we recorded that, you know, like first track in one day, you know. Wow. But the music was flowing so easily. And with Thomas, you know, he was such an incredible player, you know. So the whole thing in a trio setting like that, back to what I said before, you know, any note fits, you know. It's like and with Jon, one of the solos that he plays on an ashtray.
Really?
He had an ashtray stand beside him because he was smoking a bit at that time, you know. He was smoking, and then he had a cigarette lit, and then he was playing a song and started to hit the ashtray. If you listen close,
I have to listen to it.
Well, I don't know where it is, but some of it is played on an ashtray. So jazz is jazz, you know. You just go ahead and play. I remember the session, and it's a long time since I heard a recording, but last time I heard it, I was surprised it's actually that good. Yeah.
Yeah, I listen these days to it, and I was just like, you know, because it's no chordal instrument, and I love this. Like, this is what I love also about your trio, because it's, like we said, it's so free, you know. Yeah. The chordal instrument always kind of...
Well, it's nice, you know, but sometimes without it, you know, there is more freedom.
Yeah, definitely. I would just like to ask you one last thing, like, which is like this... I love this record you did with Albert Mangelsdorf.
Oh yeah,
Triplicity, and I mean he was for me, or is for me, one of the most underrated players probably, because he should have been more known. But
he was pretty much rated. He was one of the Europe's best trombone player, wasn't he?
Yeah, but now you speak like, you know, to this new generation, and then you mention his name. It's like, you know. But how did that happen? Like, because you and Pierre are also like amazing on there. Like,
thank you. Well, actually, I met Albert Mangelsdorf first time in 1968. I was asked to the Berlin Jazz Festival I was asked by Don Cherry to come and play with this group.
Oh, really?
So he has another record called Eternal Rhythm, and he had a fantastic band. You know, I was very proud to be asked. I was 23 years old, and it was Albert Mangelsdorf and A. Thulin on saxophone, Bernd Rosengren and Pharoah Sanders on saxophones, Sonny Sharrock on guitar, Jacques Tolot on drums, Joachim Kuhn on piano, and and Don was playing all these gamelans kind of things from Indonesia, and we rehearsed for 2-3 days. Barney Wilén was supposed to play, but he was late to the rehearsal, so Don said, well, we don't need you now.
Oh, shit.
Well, that was that. But Don was always some kind of a very special person to me.
But did you play with him later also, or?
Yeah, we played in Oslo, and I played several concerts at the Kongsberg Festival with him, with Billy Higgins and with Okay Temis, and
really?
Yeah, we played a quartet once with Billy Higgins and Low. What's his name? L-O-W.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frank Love.
Okay, whatever. And he Don also came to Oslo, played with the Garbarek quartet, and then I did this. Well, back to Albert Mangelsdorf. We met in '68, and he would take me along to all kind of jam sessions during the Berlin Jazz Days. Those years, you know, so
like the free sessions and stuff like that.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. The Germans was like going pretty much out, you know. So then years later, Albert just called me and asked me to join him at the NDR recording with Pierre Favre.
Yeah.
So that was, we just rehearsed and did that one recording. I don't think we toured or anything. I did play with Pierre Favre on another tour with John Abercrombie some of those years, but I can't remember in which sequence this is. But Mangelsdorf, and I remember that the guy that released that record, he wrote to me and said that Manfred, now Albert is going through all his own old recordings and want to release some of it. Is it okay if he releases some of his music from that session? I said, sure, okay, yeah. So that's how that came out.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, no, you mentioned it's so much fun to listen to, because you mentioned all these names you play with. Like you said now Billy Higgins. I could ask you like probably how it was to play with Billy again. Like,
yeah, that was actually very, very nice and very easy. His cymbal playing was like, it's just flows, you know, it's so easy. So it's a long list of people I had was fortunate to be able to play with.
Yeah, so much work. Well, thanks so much for sharing all that, Arild.
Well, so nice we talked for an hour. Can you imagine?
Oh yeah! Wow. Okay.
We can, with a glass of wine, we could continue for another hour.
Well, I have my whiskey here. So.
You're ahead of me. You're ahead of me.
It's lockdown, so it's like you start on a Saturday at 2 with the whiskey.
All right, that's very good.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.